have struck the United States. All hurricanes cause damage to varying degrees depending on the severity of the hurricane and how much advance warning is given to the residents of the area. What you probably don't know, however, is that the deadliest hurricane to ever strike the United States didn't even have a name. It was simply referred to as the storm. The storm, which is now known commonly as the Great Galveston Hurricane, struck the island of Galveston, Texas, September 8, 1900 in the afternoon, with no warning to its residents. I will discuss why there was no advance warning of the hurricane, the damage caused by the hurricane, and what actions were taken to protect the city from future disasters. The island of Galveston, Texas is located approximately 50 miles south of Houston and almost at sea level. According to the historical novel Isaac Storm by Eric Larson, its highest point on Broadway was 8.7 feet above sea level. Its average altitude was half that, so low that with each 1 foot increase in tide, the city lost 1,000 feet of beach. Galveston was an up-and-coming city home to between 30 and 40,000 residents and America's third largest port. The chief meteorologist at the time was Isaac Klein. Klein was extremely knowledgeable in his field, but also extremely arrogant. He was once quoted as saying, "It was an absurd delusion that any hurricane could reach the Gulf and strike Galveston." General attitudes of meteorologists at the time were to refrain from using the word hurricane as to not set panic into the city. It's also reported that Klein knew about the severity of the impending hurricane at least 6 days in advance from telegraphs he received from Cuban meteorologists. He ignored them all. All of these factors directly contributed to the damage and massive destruction caused by the hurricane. This map shows the island of Galveston and the area where the hurricane struck. This map shows the hurricane forming in the Gulf, striking Galveston, continuing across the United States and exiting eventually out of Canada. Secondly, the damage was unlike anything anyone alive at the time had seen before. According to the Encyclopedia of Hurricanes, Typhoons, and Cyclones by David Longshore, the hurricane made landfall in Galveston as a Category 4 with 140 mile-per-hour winds, 9-inch rains, and a 16-foot storm surge. The last barometric pressure reading in Galveston that day was 27.49 inches, the lowest ever recorded at the time. Within 4 hours of the first sighting of rain, between 6,000 and 12,000 people lost their lives that day. However, accurate numbers will never be known. 1/3 of the city's buildings were reduced to rubble. Total damage is estimated to be between $36 and $40 million, which in today's money would be more than $1 billion. A survivor's eyewitness account, recorded in the Greatest Disaster Stories Ever Told, edited by Lamar Underwood, tells of 90 children and 10 sisters of the St. Mary's Orphans Asylum that were found strung together with rope and half buried in the sand during the cleanup efforts. The bodies claimed by the storm were buried at sea originally, but they quickly returned with the tide. So instead, survivors piled the bodies on mass graves and burned them. Here are a few slides of the damage. Finally, the survivors were determined to rebuild their city. The hurricane was more than enough proof that the city needed a seawall. As documented in Isaac Storm, they raised the altitude of the entire city. In a monumental effort, legions of workmen using manual screws jacks lifted 2,000 buildings, even a cathedral, then filled the resulting canyon with 11 million pounds of fill. The seawall they constructed rose 17 feet above the beach. Efforts to raise the altitude and build the seawall were completed in 1910, and the city's residents began rebuilding their lives. Some never returned to Galveston, and the city became a shell of its former bright self. In conclusion, Since the Great Storm of 1900, no other natural disaster has claimed more human lives. The severity of the storm was compounded by the arrogance of Isaac Klein and his disregarding of the warnings sent by Cuban meteorologists. If the information and warnings had been passed along, more lives would have been saved. The safety measures taken after the storm's damage were helpful, and the seawall has helped defend the city against many subsequent storms. Thank you.